Alrighty. Got home. Let's crack open a cold one. See if you can hear this shit. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Maybe my sound thing got rid of it, but yeah. We got some tuning. We got some tuning to look at, man. It's good to see. It's good to see. One of the things that I was worried about is as the season continued that we just weren't going to see any changes for like 2-3 months straight until next season, but we're still getting some changes. We're still getting some buffs and moving stuff around, so that's good. I like, honestly, more so than anything, I just like to see that they're actually actively still changing stuff. Like, oh, maybe there's some like Mythic Plus changes in there that we might be seeing soon. Maybe, but let's see what they're actually changing. I haven't done a deep enough dive into this. Blood, the tuning updates. Yeah, they actually like. The funny thing is they keep changing Deathbringer, but it's totally fine for Frost. But Blood just keeps getting fucking nerfed for some reason, and then Blood DKs are like, all right, we're gonna play Sand Lane, and Sand Lane was doing pretty good, and then they nerf that again. Is like, what's going on here, man? So Deathbringer for Blood specifically is getting buffed. That's good. Developers notes, we're looking to increase Frost's single target damage while bringing down their AoE damage to help create a healthier damage profile. I mean, Breath did a lot of damage, but a lot of your damage was still Obliterate, man. Like, yeah, this is gonna lower the overall, like, AoE damage by a little bit, but increasing their priority damage and increasing their boss damage in Mythic Plus, this class is still really good. I'm honestly kind of surprised to see them getting any compensation at all for nerfing Breath of Sindragosa, especially when they're already doing... They weren't like the best single target, but for what they could do, I'm really surprised that they got basically a slap on the wrist. But they are being, at least in Mythic Plus though, the prevailing meta kind of looks like to be Assassination Rogue Enhancement Shaman. I mean, they're still good. I'm still gearing my Frost DK, so I'll probably, I don't know. I'm at this weird point where it's like, well, do I just play meta and then just get invited to all these keys? Because I'm almost 3.1 on my Warrior. Or do I just keep playing Warrior and just be that Warrior guy? It's like, I don't know. I don't know where I want to be, right? Because I want to, like, play with people. And I want to, like, consistently be able to play with people. But they're also people that care about the meta and role swap and shit like that. So if I want to play with them, I kind of have to role swap. Like, I'm in a weird spot right now. So maybe I'll just be living the pug life, maybe not. We'll see. Buff to Resto Druid. Buff to Feral Druid. So this doesn't apply to... They're still really good in PvP, but it doesn't apply to PvP. Okay. Just little buffs here and there. Druid of the Claw. Yeah, just little buffs. Nothing crazy. Survival has found a lot of success with the update to Merciless Blow, Cosmic Pack Leader, Bleed synergies. Oh, so they're actually nerfing Survival Hunter a little bit. They think it's overperforming. Interesting, okay. Oh, God. Okay, alright. Take a drink. Alright, lads. Time for the mage paragraph. Take a shot. Take a shot. Mage paragraph. Crossfire is still underperforming. Yeah, people are just playing only Sun Fury or like the other one. I don't really see people even playing Crossfire like at all. Let's see. They're just buffing it, man. They're just buffing Frost. I mean, on top of buffing Frostfire, they're just more for Fire Mage, more for Fire Mage, Ashen, more for Fire Mage. These are all buffs that are not Frostfire specific. Honestly, am I still salty about the Season 2 God Comp stuff? Am I still annoyed at that? I might be. I might unfairly be annoyed at the prevalence of caster DPS. Mainly because it feels like casters just get to just chill a lot of the time. Like, For me, one of the things I want to see in the game is if melee has to deal with this at all times. Like here, we'll do. Where's the circle? Just I need a circle shape, right? If here's the bad guy, right? If there's the bad guy, and melee have to deal with this at all times, where it's like, I'm a bad man, and all of this is just zone of death. If we have to deal with this, they should add an AoE that ranged have to deal with, right? They should add this shit, where it's a big circle around the mob, where the red spot is safe, close to the mob is safe, but around the mob in the blue zone is dangerous. So then all these fucking range players just payphoning AFKing back here might have to actually think about what they're doing and move in to deal with some of these mechanics instead of just, you used to call me on my cell phone, make that when I need my love, call me on my... Instead of actually, like, fighting the mobs, they have to, think about, oh, maybe I have to, like, step in. Or, like, not just be standing out here all the time. It would also help if they position more in, like, this actual area. It would also help group healing for pugs, too. Because then the healer isn't like, why is my hunter over here? And I'm trying to heal the melee that are, like, over here. Right? I don't know. I think fair is fair to range players. If we have to deal with this and have no way of dealing with this red circle of death, especially after removing most, if not all melee specs that have little to no valuable ranged options, and just have to have downtime, even though we're balanced to not have downtime versus ranged players. I mean, I guess the difference is kicks, but at the same time, people only care about damage, right? People only care about damage, so I don't know, maybe I'm being dumb. I'm probably being dumb. It's also because I play a lot of Final Fantasy, where Final Fantasy does this, where it has, like, the get out, but also the get in mechanic, so ranged have to deal with the shit melee have to deal with. Who knows, maybe I'm just being a giant piece of shit. But now we go over to Windwalker. Windwalker Monk has been down at... There's a guy in my guild, his name is Jetch. His character's name is Stifey. That guy just rank 1s everything. He is a gamer. He's an actual, like, monk gamer. I've never really liked Monk. I've tried to play it a little bit, but it's not a class I've ever really enjoyed. I just don't like the themes and the thematics and the punchies and the... I just kind of don't give a shit about it, right? But they are receiving some pretty sizable buffs. Conduit of the Celestials has been buffed overall. Base damage, Fist of Fury damage 20%. Blackout Kick, Flurry of Zoo... I don't know what Flurry of Zoo is, I'm going to be honest. But Fist of Fury, that's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. Looks like they're also... Let's see. We're looking to increase Windwalker's overall performance in AoE and single target through targeted adjustments to a few baseline... Excuse me. Their few baseline spells, as well as push some underrepresented talents for increased build diversity. Interesting. Well, I'll see if this actually changes. I'll see what he says as he looks over them. But what did he say in here? What did the Jetchy Man say? My hardest hitting ability buffed by 20%. Always nice. Colon 3. That's his response. Now, some Paladin nerfs. Protection Paladin has seen a insane surge. Bro, also, why did Paladin get its, like, 3rd talent rework before Warrior? Like, I mean, I've said this a lot. You've probably heard me say it a lot, but I'm still going to say it again. I know the fact that Paladin has a healer, tank, and DPS spec make it building its base talent tree way more difficult than something like Warrior, but how does Paladin get, like, what, 3? I think it's like 3 full-on talent reworks when Warrior didn't even receive theirs. Yeah, they moved Shockwave up, but, like, that's kind of it, bro. Our fucking talent tree sucks. We would like a refresh, please. We would like not... what, 80% of our talents being straight throughput. We would like some interesting utility there. And interesting utility doesn't count for wrecking throw, shattering throw, berserking shout, piercing yell. Like, those aren't very good. Like, they saw some niche use in fights like Razageth, or I guess, in PvP, and you can use a 3-minute cooldown of Shattering Throw to break a single. Dude, they changed Shattering Throw so it killed an incorporeal mob in Dragonflight. A 3-minute cooldown. Actually, is it 3 minutes? I might be lying. Let me check. Am I liar pants on fire? We can just check right here. No, I didn't lie. 3-minute cooldown to deal with one incorporeal mob. It's the same thing with Bitter Immunity, man. They need to get rid of this talent. Bitter Immunity is terrible. Honestly, what I would like to see is take the healing away from it completely and have it remove disease, poisons, and curses affecting you on like a 45 second cooldown. That kind of utility. Like, imagine if we had a spell called Shake It Off that was in this position right here on the talent tree. Shake It Off removes all disease, poisons, and curses affecting you. Only you, not party members, just you. On like a 30 or 45 second cooldown. That would be really good. Imagine if we could like be self-sufficient in things like Arakara, in places like Grim Batol, where we're dealing with a lot of poisons. Where, like, imagine if we could self-dispel every like DKs can immune the cultivating poisons on the last boss of Arakara, every other one, because of a 40-second cooldown of AMS. So what if it was like 45 seconds, so we're kind of on the same thing? It's like, oh, every other one of these, I can just step out of the group, take care of myself, get rid of this crap. You know, having some like, one of the things people talk about a lot is utility for Warrior. And I think one thing that makes Warrior kind of unique, and something that I personally, honestly, I kind of like about it, and I think other people like it as well, is its lack of group utility, right? Warriors don't want to have a cap totem. Warriors don't want to have a poison cleansing totem. Do you think a warrior wants to shiv a mob or de-enrage a mob or cast trank shot? No, warriors don't want to do that. They want to hit buttons, right? So I think things that are more self-sufficient in nature as compared to group utility could go way farther with a class like warrior. And one thing I think they've kind of missed on is the glory, like the valor part of the class. I think Mountain Thane and Stormstrike is really cool, but I feel like we have completely lost a potential part of the warrior archetype, being like valor and glory and like fighting alongside people, you know, like a lust would be really good. But think of like in Legion, like our Champions Hall, Odin's Banquet, like all this warrior themed shit. And all we have is Odin's Fury from that. We don't have any passive talents. Like, what if kind of like Riders of the Apocalypse, what if we like summoned down Herja and some of the guys, maybe they gave little buffs, or maybe they like did a cleave, or maybe we had something, right? Some sort of this like valor or glory archetype within the warrior tree that we could put inside the passives that could be really cool, right? Like what if even like, oh, we summoned Helya and she did a dot on the enemies, but that dot also heals us a little bit, kind of like, I don't know, like just some weird shit like that. Like kind of, there are things in of Warrior that are like magical, right? It seems like all we do is thunk, thunk, thunk. We're like basically outside of Mountain Thane, pretty much a pure physical class, and we have some potential for I don't know what type of damage. Maybe make it be sonic damage, because Sonic is a damage type that just does the most amount of damage against either physical or I think like nature, depending on what the enemy's debuffs are. So we could still, if we did like sonic damage, we could gain value from stuff like Chaos Brand and that kind of thing. But what's holding us back, I think, from that is the fact that anything that could be valor or glory or stuff kind of like that, just go to Ret Paladin, right? Those kinds of ideas get turned into Gods or Ashen Wake or Crusade and then just get thrown at Red Power. And we just don't get any of that archetype of our character. And I feel like that's a big loss. Or something they can really look towards as far as like real flavor that they could add to our passive tree that would affect and be good for all of our classes, right? But my rant on Paladin is over. Lightsmith, inspiration chance to proc and armament decreased by 50% for proc. Dude, they just like proc. No, it's too much. Divine Guidance damage reduced by 20%. That actually does quite a bit. Forge's Reckoning damage reduced by 50%. So they're like, yo, brother, this tank is doing way too much, right? Because this tank, on some pulls, was beating DPS. And I don't think that's a problem, right? If a tank blows every cooldown they have, they should be able to beat a DPS if the DPS is not pressing shit. Like not sending cooldowns. I do not have a problem with tanks dealing damage. However, Paladin's damage was a bit outrageous, so they're receiving some nerfs. But it is good for them that they're... I don't know exactly what this is, so I can't fully tell you if this is also a defensive nerf for them. But just nerfing their damage and not nerfing their defensiveness is a good thing. If this only nerfs their damage. A little buff to Holy Priest, buff to Deathstalker Sub-Rogue specifically, because I guess it was underperforming. Elemental Shaman receiving actually quite a few buffs. I don't know if Elemental or what was it, Lightning Thunderbringer or something is going to be better after this, but I mean, Ele Shaman's been eating pretty good lately, so this might be pretty pog for them. Resto Shaman is getting some damage buffs for Farseer, so they're just buffing Farseer overall. Enhancement. We're reducing the power of Maelstrom weapon spenders for enhancement to lower their overall damage output. This says all Maelstrom weapon spenders is reduced by 8%. The guy that plays Enhancement Shaman in my guild says the nerf is about 4 to 5%. But from what one thing that I've heard about Enhancement Shaman is that it actually has a good amount of like like the class is good, but to really do big damage, it actually has a good amount of RNG and like what dogs you're spawning, what buffs you're getting, and like can this random like Exodia kind of just pop up, which having that big burst window is pretty cool, but the problem with I think Enhancement Shaman is if we go to Simulation Craft. But the problem is, what's going on here? Like, this is the problem with Enhancement Shaman, where you see some classes and you see, like, what this line here is variance, right? You can either do this amount of damage or this amount of damage based on your proc rate, based on this, based on that. Like, for example, Deathbringer DK, look at how big the variance is! The variance is crazy big, and it's the same thing with Shaman. And one of the reasons why they tried to rework Deathbringer and bring it in a little bit is because you had these big crazy moments of just reset after reset after reset that was very unhealthy. Not only for your consistency of play, especially in raid, but it also means that balancing it correctly because of this massive range of variance makes it way harder to actually actively balance the class. Because if you just nerf it super hard because it's doing well, but don't fix the problems with its potential problems with its variance, it means that the class just goes from being decent to maybe crazy to just terrible. And that's not something we want, right? We want the nerfs to be reasonable, and we want the variance to be somewhat reined in. So maybe that's what they're doing. We will see. There's probably going to need to be more nerfs. But this class is crazy right now. Now, this is where it gets funny. Warrior changes. Colossus warriors are meant to be innately tough and hard to kill, so we're increasing their overall resilience. This is particularly aimed at helping level the field between Mountain Thane and Colossus for protection warriors, more passive resistance for Colossus versus Mountain Thane's more active mitigation playstyle. So these numbers, right? Mountain and muscle scars now reduces damage taken by 5%. These changes, where this is now 5%, and then the enemy's damage by demolished deal up to 10% less damage to you through dominance of the Colossus. Interestingly enough, these were the numbers like 3 to 4 months ago. It was 5% and 10% for this. And they nerfed both of them by half. And now they're just like, we're just gonna boop. Before the class even got to touch raid content, just, you know what, boop, you get, yep, boop, we're just gonna put exactly where it was before. Like, come on, man. But this is very, very big for arms, especially in Mythic Plus. This means arms, if you play Colossus, Slayer does not have the amount of damage reduction, but if you play Colossus as arms, this means depending on if you decide or if you need to hold your demolish for like a big damage instance, now you can demolish a target and it will do 10% less damage to you, 5% less damage to you through mountain the muscles and scars. Arms itself has 5% base avoidance in the kit. Colossus might be making a comeback in keys. I can see this thing doing some keys, especially now that it's gotten a lot of its damage reduction back. And because of the buffs it got, because of the buffs that Cleave and Mortal Strike got. One of the reasons why I haven't done much Colossus testing myself is mainly because my gear is not suited for it. Colossus wants a ton of crit and a ton of haste. And I just don't have that gear. A lot of my gear is all focused towards Fury, all focused towards the tier. But with these changes, as well as the previous buffs, and depending on next tier's set bonus, I got a feeling we're going to be playing Colossus Arms next tier. Mainly because Slayer and Fury have dominated so heavily that I feel like they want to swap it up a little bit. And Colossus might be the go-to next year. And one thing that is very interesting about Colossus is that because a lot of its damage is focused into Mortal Strike instead of Execute, instead of Execute for Slayer, is that its damage profile is not nearly as back-ended as Slayer's is. So it just kind of does damage all the time because it's so focused on Mortal Strike instead. And that is a good damage profile to have. And that is interesting. So I am very looking forward to what Colossus might be. I do want to get a little more gear that's more Colossus focused. So maybe we can do some testing. But these are great. These are good changes. These are good changes for arms. And then I won't talk about the PvP stuff because most people don't care about the PvP stuff. They buff Mountain Thane in PvP, but yep. Alright, well, cool. I'm honestly, I'll be real with you, man. I'm just glad we're getting some changes. Like actually having notes like this, they're tweaking this, messing with that, trying to buff this up, trying to change this, trying to get things to kind of where they want to be. It definitely feels like this season wasn't ready. Like the fact that we had Dark Ranger completely getting reworked at a 0.5 when it feels like that should have been in from the beginning. Stuff like that, right? Where it just feels like this expansion was not ready to launch. It feels like we're kind of getting to that stability point, especially with the new talent trees, to where now, hopefully, as they do more tweaks throughout this expansion, we'll be in a really, really healthy spot for the next edition in the following expansion. But yeah, no. Me like changes. This is good. Very good. Okay, bye-bye.